Hello, boys and girls of Credit Union Land, and welcome to episode 49 of the CUInsight experience. My name is Randy Smith. I'm one of the co-founders of CUInsight.com, and it is my job on the show to have conversations with the best and the brightest of the credit union community. I get to pick their brains and see if we can't find a few nuggets that we can all learn from. My guest on today's show is Denise Wymore. Denise is at NACUSO. She has been around the credit union world for quite some time. I was really looking forward to this conversation. She's been a longtime contributor to the CUInsight community, always willing to share her opinions on what can make credit unions better. And this episode, I will tell you, is no different. We talked about the pace of change in credit unions. We talked about CUSOs and why they're so important and why she loves working with them, and a whole lot more, including all those leadership and life hacks that you've come to expect. This conversation was an absolute blast. I hope you enjoy listening to it as much as I enjoyed having it. So without further ado, I give you my conversation with Denise Wymore. Enjoy. Denise, welcome to the show. I've been excited to have this conversation with you.
Me too, Randy.
Oh, this is going to be so much fun. I wanted to start with, you've been in credit unions for quite some time right now. And something that we've talked a lot about on the podcast is the pace of change and seeing change. And that's really where I wanted to start with you is, how has that change been, or what have you noticed over the decades? And is there, are you feeling optimistic, pessimistic, good time to be in credit unions?
Well, I love this question because next year, and I've been bragging about this, next year on June 18th, 2020 will mark 40 years.
That's
for me in credit unions.
Congratulations. And we're all lucky to have you. So,
yeah. Well, I'm a credit union lifer. I'm proud to say that. I started my career as a teller of a small credit union in Portland, Oregon. And, it's been kind of interesting. I'm very blessed to have been around in these 40 years because so much has changed. And, I think the biggest thing, it kind of goes without saying, but it's the interwebs.
Yeah.
A lot of people can't remember a world where we had no internet. And I lived many, many years, without any real sophisticated computers. So the things that make me optimistic for the future right now, and I know we're going to talk more about this, but I love that I'm working for NACUSO now because I had a pretty big credit union network, but I didn't know a lot of the CUSO people. And the CUSO people are rock stars. I mean, here's what they are. They're like my people. They've got that really cooperative heart, right? Combined with a shrewd business mind, which is the most powerful combination in the world. These are people that want to work together to make credit unions better. And that's the thing that just makes me so excited. The thing that makes me most scared, and I think I've blogged even a couple times on your website about it, my latest rant is that we are literally, as an industry, dying of old age.
Yeah.
And we're dying of old age. And it's not just about mergers. I mean, really, the root cause is the fact that we've become so hung up on credit scores. And the average age, I did a filing I3 project, the average age of a credit union borrower, which a lot of people don't calculate, is 3 to 5 years older than the member, which is still nationally at 47.
Wow. So, I did not know that.
And that's because of credit scores. You think about it. And when people are paper driven, it slants to old people. And these poor millennials are born with a score of 0. You and I weren't born with a credit score because it didn't exist.
Yep, right.
Now they're actually born into penalty, right? They are born with a 0. So that's the thing that truly makes me concerned is that we're not willing to take the risk. And we've gone away from the 3 C's, character, capacity, collateral, and we don't talk to people. We look at the score and say, pass, fail. So that's got me really concerned.
A previous guest on the podcast, Bill Cheney, talked about that we've all, not even just that, like having that 0 credit score, but that we've all made mistakes in life. And one of the things that I remember talking to him about was this idea that it's like, tell the rest of the story. What happened? It could have been medical bills. It could have been whatever, student loan debt. So it's, I am with you on that as well. I think that's great. One of the things I do want to touch on NACUSO because it's, over the 11 years of CUInsight, we've always had a relationship with the group over there. And I'm with you. I love the cooperative business mindedness of the CUSOs and the amazing work that they're doing. So it really has put you on the front lines about like what's coming to credit unions. So what is it that gets you excited? Like when you walk away from, say, your annual conference or something of that nature, or you're on one of your planning sessions, what has you excited that the CUSOs are doing out there?
This is my fourth year with NACUSO, and our event in 2020 will be the fifth event that I've attended. And what gets me really excited about it is, first of all, the level of people that come to our conference, because we are the only conference that focuses on CUSO. So those people, my tribe, that I talked about, they're all there. 60% of the attendees hold C-suite titles, many of them CEOs. So you have the decision makers, you have people who are truly there looking to collaborate. Our next big idea competition, every year that thing grows and grows and grows and gets more competitive. Last year, we had so many applicants, we had to add a wild card round. So awesome. I know, it was crazy. And we've got, great judges. And the kid that won last year, Bolin Lee, I don't know. Yeah, Bolin Lee.
I've just recently been talking to him through LinkedIn, actually, because I think Robbie from my crew met him out there and was blown away by him, right? So, yeah.
20-year-old kid from Duke University that created this program, Zogo Finance, which is for teens. Getting back to my earlier, thing, we're dying of old age. So I was so thrilled that he's got something that will bring people in that are younger and actually like the program. He just won Best of Show at Finovate and beat Dennis O'Leary of Shark Tank. This kid is on fire. So just the opportunity, the next big idea competition is probably my favorite thing because it brings the best of the best together. It absolutely shows. And these CUSOs are getting more and more innovative. And the people that are coming together, again, they're fast-paced. That's the other thing I like. They're not slow. They are, let's get this going now, which has always been my problem. I'm too urgent for our industry. I am like, let's do this now. And a lot of times the decision-making process in credit unions, oh my God, it's like glacial, right?
It can be slow, yes.
Yeah, so I'm surrounded by people who get it and have that sense of urgency that I love, and we're getting stuff done. Oh,
I love it. It is a great event. It's been a couple of years since I've been to it, but I'll have to put it back on the calendar this year. So a random question for you. This was, speaking of the interwebs earlier when I was doing a little research on you for this conversation. You became an EMT a few years ago. Before we started recording, we were talking a little bit about the community you live in and how cool this has been. What was the motivation? That seems...
I'll tell you the true story. My husband drugged me to an open house at the fire station. And I was, I thought, if we're too old, we're not in good enough shape. They don't want us. And then you don't realize in rural areas, most of the fire departments in the United States are volunteer. You probably don't realize that. And in a rural area, we'll just take what we can get. So I thought, okay, we originally signed up to be drivers. That's what they needed, and so I drove the ambulance, I drove the fire truck. And then the more I saw, the more I wanted to do it and I wanted to help. And the catalyst was we had an accident that was a car with 5 passengers and 5 motorcycles collided. Yeah, worst accident in the history of our station. I was a driver, and then I found myself in the back of the ambulance helping, and I got hooked. So we went on to get our EMT basic. I got my EMT advanced. This week I started Firefighter 1 training, and by the time I'm 60, which isn't that far away, I hope to have my paramedic license.
Wow, that's great. So is your husband doing this too? Are you both doing it?
He's doing it too. Yeah, he's doing it too. He's the CFO of State Employees Credit Union. And we don't get paid. People always ask, so we do not get paid. Yeah. It is not going to be my new career because honestly, I think it would take the fun out of it if it became a job. I love that we volunteer to do it. And it has been the hardest thing for me in my life, but also by far the most rewarding.
I absolutely love that. That's fantastic. What a cool story. And I'm sure you have lots of cool stories from it as well. So I wanted to just kind of wrap up this first section and go back to something. And it's a question that I ask everybody, but again, you being on the front lines, what you're seeing with NACUSO, and then also your history in credit unions. Is there something that you think we fundamentally have to change to stay relevant? As we go forward with this pace of change? And is it credit scores? You mentioned that.
Yeah, that's a big one. I think the focus of my speaking, teaching, writing, blogging, or I like to call it ranting, which you let me do on your site, has always been about a credit union's brand. But my definition of brand is one word, and that's reputation. It's not your name. It's not your logo. In fact, I'm really proud that I've never been behind any of these stupid name changes. Don't get me started. It's one of my rants. But, it's reputation, right? If you have a horrible reputation in your community, all the marketing in the world isn't going to help you. right? It's not going to help you. If you have a great reputation, many credit unions don't know why. They don't know why. And if you don't know why, you can't protect it, right? So I teach it at CUNA Management School and Medicine and also the CUNA School at University of Georgia. And I teach about brand. And a lot of people think, oh, the marketing girl is going to come in and talk about advertising. The truth is I hate advertising. My brand teaching is about word of mouth. We have to get back to it. Word of mouth is, always has been, always will be the best marketing. And before we had marketing departments, back in 1980, we didn't have marketing. Our members marketed for us. 100% of our marketing came from our members. And we don't have that anymore because we have community charter. We have a stupid name. We've erased our history. Did I mention a lot of names are stupid? If you can fit your credit union name into this sentence, ask your doctor if blank is right for you, then it's a stupid name. I'm not going to mention the ones that I know fit that sentence. Ugh.
That is fantastic. I love that. That's you got me laughing and smiling. So I love this. So I want to move on to the second part of the show, the leadership and life hacks. I know you have a lot to share. You've obviously author, teacher, so I was excited about this part. But I'd like to start with what inspired you? You mentioned almost 4 years now at NACUSO to take that gig.
It's funny. Matt Davis actually got me the gig because Matt Davis was in one of the next big idea competitions and he wrote about his experience. And Jack and Shauna reached out to Matt and said, we like the way you write and we really want to add, we need like a blog and we need some content marketing. And Matt was, launching Gamify. And so they didn't even really know me, but he kicked it over to me and said, you should talk to Denise Wymore. And when I met Jack and Shauna, you couldn't meet two nicer people on the planet. And so I started just with kind of a monthly contract to do some blogging and, writing for them. And then we became so close. We're like a family. And then they expanded my contract. And now, like I said, I'm going into my 4th year with them. So it's really been a great experience. I hope to end my career. I keep telling them, whether they like it or not, my plan is to stay with NACUSO until the end.
It's cool to find a place like that where you just fit so well, right? And behind the mission. So how has the inspiration changed over the past few years with time on the job?
Well, I'm a real believer in the Six Cooperative Principle, cooperation among cooperatives. And that's the thing that's been so great about NACUSO too, is because cooperation among cooperatives, it's essential for our future, right? And a lot of people don't even know about the Six Cooperative Principle, which is so sad. But if you think about that one principle, and if credit unions were to really embrace it, here's a great example: shared branching, right? I was like the poster child for shared branching because when I was traveling all the time with my work, I would deliberately go find credit unions and deposit paper checks at, different shared branches to kind of show that shared branching is brilliant. You should never lose a member. And imagine if every single credit union had said yes to shared branching in those early days. That would have been our national brand campaign, right? That would have been it. We could have beat the banks on every argument. The whole ATM network, the whole shared branching network, if everyone, to me, it was such a no-brainer with shared branching, right? Or if it is an expense issue, how can CUSOs overcome that? How can we bring people together to say, no, this is truly a national brand campaign? It's a differentiator, which is what we desperately need. I see that in another CUSO, CU Ledger, which is kind of in their infancy, but I've been watching them from the very beginning, and my experience is this also could be like shared branching, a national brand campaign. It can be a differentiator, and they want to go international with it, which is even better. And so that's my plea to credit unions is stop being so stupid about cooperating. And we are not the enemy. If we work together, then we can fight the real enemy, which is Wells Fargo, right? How are they still in business? My God. Right?
It's funny you say that. I remember years ago, very early on in CUInsight, I was asked to judge like a Q's marketing awards or something of that nature. And one of the questions they had was, who was your competitor? And anytime somebody said another credit union, I'm like, you're getting points off for that. It's just, it's like, no, that's not your competitor. That's insane to me, right? Like Bank of America, Wells Fargo, these are your competitors, Chase, So I am so with you on that. This was just yesterday, actually. I was in an airport with Victor Coro from Coopera, and he was talking about in Brazil, how they realized they had an image problem in their cooperatives down there. And one of the things they did was like, basically there's a standardized like shared branches in banking. Like you can go to any place in the country. And he told me over the years, he took probably 20 different credit union leaders down there to see that. And it almost sounded like it was just an ego thing. Like we couldn't give up. We're like, nope, we can't do that. That's not,
It totally is. It totally is. The ego. And, that's one of the things we notice that like what keeps people from cooperating. Number one is ego. Yeah. Which is so sad. So sad.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm with you. So I was excited to ask you this question too. I feel like you have so much knowledge in this area, but you've worked with a lot of different leaders. And now at NACUSO, you mentioned, 60% are CEOs and in the C-suite. Have you noticed a trait or traits in the most successful leaders? And has that changed over time?
I have two mentors, whether they like it or not. And
awesome.
And I was talking to I just saw one this last weekend, and I was so fortunate that I was raised by two incredible leaders. And the first one was Sarah Bang. She got me early on in my life, and she really helped me refine my own personal brand. I love clothes. And when I was younger, I took a lot of what I will just call fashion chances. And one day, Sarah came up to me in the mailroom. I was at the Oregon Credit Union League with her. And I had on like these bright lime green flowered pants that you could see from space and this funny top and I think sandals. And she said, you look really cute and you can pull that outfit off, but I know that you want to be in management. And I said, yes, I very much do. And she said, so you need to dress where you want to be. That was the best piece of advice ever, because I went out and bought my first suit, because back then, women wore suits. Yep. I bought my first suit. I had to put it on layaway because I couldn't afford it. And it really helped me. I mean, she took me under her wing. The other thing that I used to never talk about, now I'm actually kind of proud, I don't have a college degree. And I used to suffer from a huge imposter complex, like people were going to find out. And Sarah once told me, she gave me this huge promotion, and I was like, oh my God, Sarah, I don't know if I can do that. And she said, act like the expert and you will become one. And I have done so many things in my life that I probably have no business doing.
Experience is a beautiful thing, right?
Experience is a beautiful thing. But the second one was my very first boss, when I worked in credit unions, and my very last boss, my bookends were Tom Sargent. And Tom, so when I say that I taught Tom Sargent how to be a CEO. I was at Pacific Northwest when he got his first CEO job. But he was, as you know, pioneer, right? I love him or hate him. I love this guy because he did not fear change. He almost demanded change. He let me make a ton of mistakes. And he was the fail faster guy. You hear about that all the time. Yep. But I lived it with that guy. And so he's almost kind of ruined me, because I think that I've seen that the rate of change and taking risk pays off. It really pays off if you have a really succinct vision like he did. Nothing was impossible. Tom Sargent. It was just like nothing was impossible.
So it sounds like with him, you mentioned we hear fail fast all the time now. He seems to kind of almost been an early adopter. Is that something you've seen industry wide, or we need to see more of it? Or
my God, we don't like to fail. No, we don't like to fail. And I guess, the other thing that I learned when I was with Filene as an I3er was we also don't know how to prototype. And why people don't like to fail is because they don't understand prototyping. And instead, when some new initiative comes down, they test the heck out of it and they're going to go, you know what I mean? They make sure they don't fail. Whereas if you were to say, you know what, we don't know if this is going to work. This is what Tom did all the time. We don't know if this is going to work. So let's try it in one branch.
Yep.
Just try it. That was the prototype. Let's try it in one branch. And because we know it's not going to be perfect. So let's figure out what's wrong with it before we deploy company wide. And he was a prototyper. And at Filene, that was the I3 way. You got a good idea, you prototyped it, you piloted it, and you fixed it then.
But I think in this, it's something that we've always said at CUInsight too. In this kind of digital world, you can roll things out and test them very easy, right? And if it doesn't work, junk them. You know what I mean? Or go back to the drawing board, try something new. What needs to be tweaked. I even say that about this podcast. I committed to 10 episodes. And if it wasn't going to catch on by then, it wasn't going to. But now we're 40 some episodes in. So that's obviously having fun. But it was that idea of kind of just like, okay, let's put something out there, see if it's going to work. If it's not, there's other ideas, or maybe we have to tweak something. So I love hearing that. Is there something that people have heard you say so many times that they can finish your sentence?
Yeah, I think that question everything was the tagline for my company. And I had a flying pig, which was my logo for many, many years. And the flying pig, and it said question everything under it. And then people would get confused. And I'd say, well, pigs can't, when pigs fly is like an impossible statement. And I turned it on its ear. I said, here's the thing. Why can't pigs fly? I mean, why can't they? We can make them fly. We're only limited by our imagination. And when someone has a good idea killer is usually, oh, we tried that. I hate it when I'm in like a strategic planning and it's usually somebody new too, right? That doesn't have all the history. Will say, oh my God, wouldn't it be great if we did this? And immediately someone will squash it and say, oh, we already tried that. And when people say that, my answer is always, why did you fail?
Right.
Right? I mean, clearly you thought it was a good idea and you tried it. And I hate the word try. What is that, Yoda? There is no try, there's only do, yeah. Right? And the Philemon I3 team, we were given the most powerful phrase. When we identified a problem, we were trained to say, how might we solve this problem? Because how might we says there is a solution. We just need to find it. Not how can we or can we? It's how might we solve this problem? So I've really lived that statement since I was a Philemon I3er.
There's another side to that I always think too is sometimes we can be too early. We've mentioned that credit unions can move slow. So just because we tried something 3 or 4 years ago doesn't mean that it's not the right time today, right? Like that it might have just been too early. So when you think back to early in your career, was there, I loved when you were telling the story about like the guidance you got from Sarah. Is there a mistake that you made? And I like to take this one step further, that you see other young people make over and over, that you wish you could just be like, stop it. If you only knew what I knew now.
Well, you know what? I got to tell my favorite story about Tom Sargent and being okay with mistakes. So I'm this, hotshot vice president of marketing, dream job, first tech credit union. And we had a pretty cool field of membership. We were Microsoft, Amazon, Intel. We were pretty cool and hip. So my team decided that and this is the late 90s. So keep that in mind, late 90s. My team decides we're going to launch a new website, and it is going to be hip and cool and groundbreaking. So we put a macro media flash and kind of a beginning to the site. And it's so cool. And the day that we launched it, we actually made Intel was one of our big segs. The day that we launched it, the call center lit up, and we found out that we made Intel's bitch site. It was actually called the bitch site. It was their intranet. And what we did was we didn't realize if you're at work and you're looking at your credit union account, which is what most people did, they needed a Macromedia Flash plugin to get into the new website. And their credit union or their company would not allow them to download that. Yeah. We essentially shut everyone out of the credit union's website. Nobody could get in.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah. But you thought you were being innovative. So
we thought we were being innovative. And all of a sudden it was like we threw a big door in there that nobody had the key to, right? They couldn't get in. And so we had very quickly, we had to pull it down. We had to put the old one up. The other thing we found out is we did this black background on it. I mean, it's really edgy. We had this banking outside the box tagline that nobody ever got to see because they couldn't get in. But then we also heard from a lot of our members that black was reserved in the early days for porn sites. Only porn sites
used black at the time, huh?
So it was a double whammy of bad, right? And so the next day we had to put up the old site, and Tom comes in my office the next day, and I'm for sure thinking I'm going to get fired, because I made this gigantic blunder. And he walked in and he said, just from the look of your face, I can tell you're beating yourself up more than I ever could. I'm not here to tell you did something wrong. He said, I'm here to tell you that, you know what? You took a chance. You made a mistake. The people that work for me that never, ever make a mistake usually aren't doing anything worthwhile. Is that fantastic? I mean, I will never forget that day. It was still tough. We had to start over on the
right. Which is never a short process. So
never a short process. But, we took a chance. And here's I guess what I would say to young people, don't be afraid to make mistakes, but for God's sakes, learn from them. Yeah. Don't make them twice. Yep. Don't make them twice because that's dumb.
Absolutely. Right. It's the touching the stove. If you have to touch it again, that's on you. So has there been a piece of advice or a life lesson that you found yourself like that you go back to often or holding on to?
My personal slogan, I love the company Ben & Jerry's for many reasons. I love their ice cream, but I also love their story. And they were a story that early on I would retell to credit unions to kind of show them an example of a great company with values, right? And their slogan was, if it's not fun, why do it?
Yeah.
Right?
I love that.
I truly have lived my life, and I consult with a lot of credit unions. And if you're not, and I always advise people just personally, if you're not having fun in what you're doing, then move on. Because nobody's having fun around you, and you need to enjoy what you're doing. We spend more time at work than we do with our families. And if we don't enjoy it, that's a disservice to your family and to yourself. And so I love to laugh. I like to make people laugh, and I like to have fun.
I agree with you completely. It's one of those things as I've gotten older, if it's not that hell yes, then it's a no, right? So I was interested to ask you this question as well. If you run into a wall, you like working on big ideas, when you talked about I3, things of that nature. If you run into the wall, do you have a hack that, helps you get to the other side? Is there something that you do?
Yeah. It's funny when you say that. In my work, I have never really, I read a lot, I do a lot of research. I only have a high school education, but I got it from a private school that taught me how to learn. It was a college prep school, so I learned how to learn. So I've not really run up against too many obstacles in my career. But I will tell you, when I started studying to be an EMT, and my fire chief will attest to this, I had a complete meltdown in class one day, cried because I was horrible at math.
Okay.
And we got to medical math. Because everything's metric in medicine. Everything is metric.
Right. Yep.
So not only did I have to learn that, but medical math is really, really, it's algebra. And I sucked at algebra. So here's what I learned from my fire chief, who's a great instructor. I'm a visual learner. I need almost games to get me through difficult obstacles. So he created I called it magic math. And he showed me how to make the algebraic equation into a fraction. He gave me something I was already familiar with.
Yep.
And then I got it. I nailed it, right? I got it. I nailed it. The other thing was you have to be able to trace a drop of blood through the heart in order to get your license. And I read it over and over and over and again. And I used to just say, I don't understand the heart, how it works. So I put in the Google machine.
Yep.
Fun, and I put the word fun video, how does the heart work? And this hilarious video came out. It's a rap song. And it shows how the blood goes through the heart. And then the next day I said to the chief, okay, I got it. I said, ask me anything about the heart. And I nailed it because I'm a visual learner. So when I get stuck on something, and the chief knows it, because I'm going on to get my paramedic license, and talk about tough. But he said, all I know for you, Denise, is I just got to sing a song or show you a video.
You can find you the YouTube video.
And I can save lives.
It's so interesting because it is, we all do learn different. We consume information different, right? So it's knowing how, if it's being presented to you in one way, sometimes if you just take a look at it, that's cool. If you have a free day, nothing on the calendar, what other passions do you have outside of credit unions? What do you do to recharge? And I would ask you this. We were talking about both of us working from home earlier. What does work-life integration look like to you?
It's funny. I'm a very social person, and yet I like my alone time. And my favorite thing when I have time alone, we live in northern New Mexico, really, really remote area that I told you about. I can walk out my door, Randy, to a trail. And I can hike forever and not see another human being.
Okay. Yeah.
And that is my favorite thing to just recharge, is to get out. And I'm almost disappointed if I do see a human. It's I just want to get out there and kind of do my own thing. And, working from home, the work-life balance, since Mark, my husband, is doing this journey with me as well with fire and EMS. And we want to do it, as long as we can. And it's physically demanding. So part of the balance is that hiking too, is just staying in shape. We do a lot of mountain rescues up here. And I don't want to be that person who can't carry, a pack up, or be the old lady that everybody's worried about. Yeah. So it's been really fun, and it's completely different than the credit union world too. So I have to shift right brain, left brain a lot now. And as I get older, to be quite honest, I like that because I feel like I'm using my whole brain, and it keeps you sharp, right? It keeps you sharp.
I would think so. I want to move on to the final part of the show and have a little bit of fun with these. They're the rapid fire questions. The questions are rapid. Your answers do not have to be. So, do you remember the first time you got into trouble? Memorable trouble that you can share with us?
My earliest memory, I think I was about 3 years old. I had two older sisters. They had hoisted me up on the kitchen counter to get at the sugar cereal that was limited, And I remember my mother walking in, and I think now when I look back, she was screaming because I was this toddler standing on the counter. And my two little sisters, were standing below me. And I remember us getting in so much trouble. And that, I think that it stayed with me because that horrible feeling of fear, oh my God. Yeah. That was the first time.
That's a good story. Do you have any daily routines that if you don't do, your day just feels off?
I start my day with coffee. You said you do too.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I play wordscapes. It's this little game where I play wordscapes. It improves my vocabulary. I've learned all kinds of new words, and I like a sense of winning. I like to start my day with a win.
Get a win first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
I heard years ago on a podcast, and it's something I try to do, but it was a military guy that was on this podcast, and he was saying the importance of making your bed every morning was the fact that you get something accomplished first thing. So it was something he did every morning was he made his bed, because then he knew he accomplished at least one thing that day. So the random question.
Yeah.
What's the best album of all time? The one you can listen to without skipping a song.
Nobody can disagree with this. Hands down, Carole King's Tapestry.
That's the one.
Album. That's the one. That's the one. I know the word to every single song on that album. It's the best album ever. It's one of the most widely sold albums of all time. Everyone needs to buy it.
It will be a good one for the year-end Spotify playlist. So I'm a reader. Jill and I have a stack of books around the house that have been recommended to us and that we're trying to make our way through. Is there a book that you've either gifted or that you just think everybody should read?
Hands down, I don't know if you've heard of it. It's called Orbiting the Giant Hairball.
I've not heard of that one. No.
Yeah, it's a corporate fool's guide to surviving with grace, and it's by this guy Gordon MacKenzie. I told you I'm very visual. There's a lot of pictures in it, but he worked for Hallmark Cards for 30 years.
Okay.
So he made his money being creative, and his story though is that a huge corporation like Hallmark has almost stifled creativity, and so he calls that the hairball. And the hairball of bureaucracy. And you know what it is. I mean, any company, even 3 people in the CUSO, there's still hairballs, right? There's still stuff you have to do. So this is the most amazing book about just telling you how to orbit the hairball and stay true to yourself and to stay creative and to have fun. You would love it.
I was just going to say, you just added a book to the stack. So as you've gotten older, what's become more important? And my favorite part of the question, what's become less important?
As I become older, if I were to look back and tell my 25-year-old self some good advice, we talked about work-life balance. I was horrible with personal relationships in my first 40 years. I mean, it was, for people that know me really well, they're chuckling now going, yes, you were. I failed miserably at personal relationships, but I excelled in my career. I did not have it right. I absolutely did not. And I finally found that balance. And I'm really happy to say I've been with Mark now going on 20 years. Very happy. Hopefully 20 more. I got that down. I finally got that down.
I understand that you speak to me there also. So there's a question I didn't send you. When you hear the word success, who's the first person who comes to mind?
Success? Oh, she's going to hate me for saying this. Probably Sarah Kanipa Bang again. I think she's a lovely person. I know her personally. And her definition of success is truly comes from her heart, and it is about the people that you help. It's not about yourself. It's not about your money or your title or what your resume looks like. It's those people that you help, and you don't need credit for it.
That's my favorite question on the show, and the reason why is because we all define success differently. So that's beautiful. I think it's great. That's an awesome answer. Thank you again, Denise, for being on the show. I've had so much fun learning more about your story, and thank you for sharing the lessons that you've learned. The last question I have for you is, do you have any final thoughts or anything you'd like to ask our listeners?
No, I just think, getting back to Sarah, and I think if you can do something nice for a stranger every day, and it could be just holding a door open for someone, smiling, making someone laugh. I think that's if we do those little tiny kindnesses every single day, the world's going to be a better place.
That is a beautiful place to end. We will link to everything we talked about on the show in the show notes. If people have additional questions, is there a preferred way? Email, LinkedIn, the Twitter machine, to get a hold of you?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn and all my contacts there. Also, it's just Denise@NACUSO.org is my email. Super simple. Go to NACUSOnetwork.com and check out our conference next year.
That's awesome. We will link to that for sure. And we'll link to your contact information as well. So thank you again so much for taking the time, Denise. I've enjoyed this, and I hope everybody listening does too. Have a great day.
Thanks.